So to be successful, we need to be trusted, and to be trusted, we need to work hard to help economic development, work with our host communities, and to protect the integrity, the environmental integrity of this beautiful land. And you may ask, how are we doing this at Anglo American? So it's our Future Smart mining program. It's purposeful innovation, it's technology meets sustainability. Mark is going to talk about the technology in just a while, but if you allow me,
some slides up there as well.
If you allow me, I'll just take you through a little bit of the sustainability strategy. So it commits us to a series of very ambitious goals, and the goals lead us to 2030. We're still developing the pathways on how we're going to get there. That's how ambitious they are. They're aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and our strategy rests on 3 pillars. The first pillar is the trusted corporate leader, and that's really about advocating for the highest standards of governance to drive transparency and trust in mining and in mine products. Healthy environment. It's all about biodiversity and efficiency in water and energy. And the last one is thriving communities. And that is about having excellent health and education in our host communities. But probably more relevant to the conversation today is this very ambitious goal of creating 5 jobs off-site for every single job we have on-site. Collaborative regional development. And it's a bit like turning the traditional socioeconomic development model on its head. So whilst we will absolutely continue doing local employment and local procurement and enterprise development, and the mine remains the anchor, we want to move the dependency of the community on more, take a holistic view and look at a region. So we're through spatial analysis, we look at what types of activities would flourish in a given region. And then we as catalysts bring regional government, municipal government, all of our stakeholders, and we sit down and we look at how we can make these activities flourish. So we've been trialing this in Limpopo for the last couple of years. We're actually starting our studies in Peru, and activities such as 3D printing, game ranching, and agribusiness like biofuels are the type of activities that are emerging. So we're hoping that we're going to help communities thrive long after the mine is gone.
If you look at Anglo American 5 years ago, we were losing our competitive position. We had made mistakes in terms of capital allocation, and there were things that we needed to deal with if we were going to have a future. You roll the clock 5 years on, every person in Anglo American is now producing double what they were producing 5 years ago. Our operating costs have dropped 43%. We've given 16% of that back to inflation, but our underlying costs then versus now we're 27% below where we were, and we're now delivering returns that are competitive with the best in the industry. In the next 5 years, and if I reflect back, we've just got our focus on the basics, introducing industrial processes, we've made those improvements. In the next 5 years, it's about major step changes in terms of innovation and really driving off the Future Smart program. And so for some of the engineers in the room, if I take 1 minute to describe what that looks like, we have new methods to identify resources and characterize those resources so we understand what we're mining. In mining, we're actually using ore sorters to actually sort waste before we put them through the mill, so we can spend 20% less in building a mill that will support the extraction of the ores from waste and ore. We're changing the way we size ore, so instead of grinding material to bug dust or slush, we can grind it to chili flakes and use flotation to float the chili flakes that contain copper or nickel or platinum, and we're using 30% less energy to achieve that. And because the waste material is essentially a chili flake type consistency, we can extract the water and recycle that water much more effectively through our process, we halve the consumption of water, and we change the dynamic in terms of the tailings that we create. And ultimately for us, we want to get to a tailingsless mine. Now all of that in the next 5 years in setting those foundations provides us with the next set of step changes to continue to drive us to the front of the industry in leadership. We have to do that as a matter of survival. That's where we have to go. Each and every one of us in this room. If you're not thinking about these things, there is no future. And for us, the same lateral thinking approach, new ideas, new concepts, is just as important in terms of our local communities, because for us, the single most important stakeholder in our business is our local community. And that hasn't been the case in the last 100 years.
They are disruptive times, and we're going to need to find different approaches. Let me start at the outset by saying, by no means do we have the answer. All the answers. We have pathways, and we're working with everybody to try to create a strategy. But at the heart of our response, we need to put people first, and we need to be caring about the long term. Our challenge is to get our heads around the future of work and what kind of skills are going to be required. Because traditional mining roles are transitioning. Take a truck driver. A truck driver of the future is not going to need a driver's license. A truck driver of the future is going to need digital skills to be able to work in a control room. And I'm using the word future rather loosely because future is actually here and now. In many places, this is already happening. So I'm going to allow myself to quote Klaus Schwab, the executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, in characterizing the fourth industrial revolution in this way. We stand on the brink of a technological revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, we work, and relate to one another. In its scale, scope, and complexity, the transformation will be unlike anything humankind has experienced before. We do not know just yet how it will unfold, but one thing is clear. The response to it must be integrated, comprehensive, involving all stakeholders of the global polity, from public and private sectors to academia and civil society. And that is precisely how we are thinking about it. You know, in some geographies and in some economies where the unemployment rate is in low single digits, you can't have exactly the same model applied. So Canada, the US, Australia, whereas South Africa has, you're looking at 27, 28%, and for youth it's even higher. So we're looking at basically creating a new social contract with our communities. At Anglo American, we've coined that social license to innovate. So it takes the bar even higher from a social license to operate. We need to understand the skills that are required. We're going to need to reskill or upskill existing employees so that they can have access to greater wages. And we need to be collaborating on sustainable job creations programs, because this transition needs to be managed fairly and justly for employees.
Yeah.
Iman, at the end of the day, what do people want? People want transferable skills that allows them to work in any company, in any industry, in any country.
So it sounds, Mark, like a lot is changing.
The change that we'll see even in the next 5 years is significant. It's significant for the country, it's significant for our operations, our businesses, and it's significant for local communities. And from our point of view, Anglo American in the next 5 years will grow, and it will improve its businesses. It will be significant change. We are not going to be a Cobb & Co. or a Kodak or a BlackBerry. We are charting our own direction around future, and we have to do that with local communities. And whilst we will grow, the reality is our employment base will not grow at the same rate. And what we've said, and what we're applying our minds to, and Chris and Timber and the guys here today, July, are all looking at, is how do we create and be a catalyst for the creation of 5 jobs for every 1 job we have in our operations. Now people will say, well, wait a minute, if I add the cost up, that will impact you. And I said, no. Being a catalyst for the creation of 5 jobs is helping our local communities identify new commercial opportunities and working with them with the infrastructure that we've installed to be successful as a miner also provides them the opportunity to create or go from subsistence agriculture to commercial agriculture, because they've now got roads and transport routes to get their product to market. There's a whole range of new opportunities we can see by helping people access water and other infrastructure that they wouldn't be able to access if it wasn't for the fact that there's a mine in that community. So we've got to turn a mine being in a community from a negative to an absolutely unarguable positive. And that means we've got to think about how we connect with local community members and see and help them develop opportunities that will give them not a life of mine of 20 years, but a life of community of 100 years plus. And we can help transform those communities, and that's what we have to apply ourselves. Or we won't be given the opportunity to develop the resources. That's the new future.